Hi guys, this is just a quick video to show you how to adjust levels between tracks in Audition. We're going to go over everything from importing to saving and exporting as well. So here we go. You can see I've got Audition open here on my computer. We need to get some files into our audio bin up here. Okay, so first thing we're going to do, we are going to go to File, Import, File. And we're going to find our files on our computer, but mine are just on my desktop here. So I've got these two files here. Just hit open, and you can see they've opened by default in our waveform view, so we can just see our music. If we just play this back, okay, and then we've got our voiceover here. Okay, we're going to create a multi-track in a second and sort of get these two files into our multi-track so we can sort of switch between the two and adjust levels between each of them and do some fade-ins and fade-outs. This might be stuff you already know, but if you don't, it's good to go over it again, and it's just some little tips. You can apply this to sort of audio in video as well. It's not just for audio's sake. You can apply the tools I'm going to show you today to sort of other projects as well. So it's worth watching and worth bearing in mind that these skills are transferable throughout different projects. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do, we're going to create a multi-track session up here. So if we'll click multi-track now, we get this little dialog box up on our screen, so we can just call it advert, because that's what we're going to be working on. We've got a folder location here, so where we're going to save it to. We're going to save it to the desktop, that's absolutely fine. Sample rate and bit depth, 48,000 Hertz at 16-bit, that's absolutely fine as well, and also in stereo, that's absolutely fine. This is stuff we can change when we come to save and export later, so I'm not too worried about getting this right straight away, but it's always a good habit. Okay, we just hit OK, and then we get our multi-track opened up here. So it's created us 6 tracks, okay, and what we're going to do, we're going to throw our audio onto the timeline. Okay, so you can see here in our bin we've got some audio files here, the ones we dealt with earlier. So first one, we've got our music track, so I'm just going to chuck that in on our first track here, and we've got our voiceover track, which is right here. Okay, you can change these around if you need to. You don't have to work necessarily the way I'm working, but this is how I found it easiest to work. So we can see straight away on our timeline that our music track is a lot louder than our sort of voiceover track, and what we're going to be doing is going over and just adjusting sort of levels between each track to get these nice and the same, basically. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn up the volume. I'm going to boost the volume of our voiceover first, so we need to go into waveform view to do that. So I'm just going to double click on our voiceover, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to favorites, and I'm going to go to normalize to -0.1, and what that's going to do is going to take the loudest peak of our audio file, and it's going to move it all the way up to -0.1, which is somewhere around here. And then once I've done that, I can go back to my multi-track session on the left hand side here, and you can see that the wavelength has already got bigger for us to look at. Okay, so I'll just go back to my multi-track, so I can play this back now just to see how it sounds.
Since 1834, the old brewery at Bathurst in Stanbridge has been making some of the fun.
Okay, so you can still hear that the music is quite a bit louder than our voiceover. So what I'm going to use now is envelope lines, basically, to adjust the volume of our music. So on each track on the left hand side, you'll see this little arrow here next to the word read. If I click this arrow now, it's going to show envelopes. And by default we get a volume envelope line up here. So this yellow line that goes across here, this is going across our audio track. You can probably see quite faintly throughout our wavelength here. But what we're going to do is, rather than just keep altering this line on our wavelength, it can look quite messy and get quite confusing to work with. We click this little arrow just to show it below, so it's nice and neat, and it saves any confusion happening, basically. So what's going to happen is that I'm going to just zoom out a little bit like this, and I'm just going to create a keyframe now. So if I just click I've just created a keyframe there. Okay, I might need to add a couple, because if I just add one at the start and the end, and then I boost the volume, see how it's added a keyframe in the middle, and it's gone for like this, like half triangle sort of like shape. What this will do, as it plays, it will basically be getting quieter and quieter and quieter. It'll get to the quietest that you've selected, and then it will start to get louder, and that's not the results that we want. We want a sort of quite a dramatic change in volume to start with, and then for our voiceover to come in basically. Okay, so I'm just going to create another keyframe here. I'm just going to pull our audio out a little bit, so we have a little bit of music playing before our voiceover kicks in. I'm just going to create another keyframe. I'm just going to delete this one first, because we don't need these ones. I'm just going to create one here. So when I pull this one down now, you will see a more of a dramatic line up here. Okay, so I'm going to pull it down about 13 dB, and I'm going to pull this one down around the same as well, so it's level. And if we have a quick listen to this back now.
Since 1834, the old brewery at Bathams in Stourbridge has been making some of the finest.
So I'll just play that again, and you can hear the little duck it does before our voiceover comes in.
Since 1834, the old brewery at Bathams in Stourbridge has been making some of the finest lagers and ales in the UK. We still
Brilliant. Okay, I'm happy with that. Okay, but you can probably see there's a little, quite a bit too much silence between each sections of our voiceover here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull this one down a touch and hide this envelope line. When I hide them, it doesn't get rid of the envelope lines. It's just a view, so it's just to hide the view of the envelope line, that's all. So what I can do is I can grab our razor tool. Remember, we've got our edit tools at the top here. We've got our move tool, okay, for moving our audio around on our timeline. We've got our razor tool for slicing up our audio for different sections, and our slip and our time selection tool. The only ones we're going to really be using today are the razor tool and the move tool. So I'm going to select my razor tool, and I'm just going to make a cut in between each of the sections of our voiceover here. Go back to my move tool, and if I go to right to the end of each section of our audio, these are all separate bits of audio now, you can see. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to get rid of the silence that's in between and make it for a more natural feel to our audio. So if I go to the end here, you see this red square brackets appear. Okay, and this allows me to trim our audio. Okay, so I'm just going to trim it down so there's a little bit of silence at the end, maybe around there. And I'm going to do the same with this one here at the start. I'm just going to pull this back in. So, too far. So now what I've done is I've just reduced the silence in between those two tracks. So if I take a listen to it now.
Brewery at Bathams in Stourbridge has been making some of the finest lagers and ales in the UK. We still operate as an independent brewery and have for over 150 years.
Okay, yeah, I'm happy with that. It could probably go with becoming a little bit shorter. So you just saw me toggle this snapping, which is the magnet icon here. It just allows me to get more precise with my movements when I'm selecting and trimming. Okay, if I have this on, it's going to automatically jump to the next second or half second. So you can see the blue line that's appeared. Okay, and it's going to automatically snap it there. But I don't want it to necessarily. I want to kind of be in control where it snaps to. So I'll take that off, and it just makes a little bit more smoother. So I'll just trim it to around there, push it up, and then play it back.
Since 1834, the old brewery at Bathams in Stourbridge has been making some of the finest lagers and ales in the UK. We still operate as an independent brewery and have for over 150 years.
Cool, so I'm happy with that, and I'm just going to do exactly the same to this last bit here. I'm just going to use the trim tool, trim it up a bit, and pull it up to here, get rid of the silence, and then play this back.
We still operate as an independent brewery and have for over 150 years. Bathams, the finest ingredients to give you the finest experience.
Brilliant. I've just overlapped it a little bit there, and you'll see those yellow lines appear. These are crossfade, basically. So what's going to happen if you look at the screen now, as this audio file plays, it's going to play, and as the timeline goes over it, it's going to fade out. Okay. Before this one fades out completely, this track, this audio clip that's selected, is going to start to fade in. It can work really well when you're tidying up audio and things like that, and when you want to overlap audio and things. But for the purposes of this sort of little tutorial, it's not what we're after. So I'm just going to pull it up to the line right there. Okay, and then we've got a little tagline on the end. If we just listen to that.
50 years. Bathums, the finest ingredients to give you the finest experience.
Brilliant. And then we can start to fade our music out just at the end. Okay, so I'm going to get our audio envelope line, and we can trim this because we don't need this bit of audio here. We're just going to trim it back to sort of the end. We're going to give it a couple of seconds after the vocals have stopped. And you can see once I have selected a audio clip that these sorts of grey boxes appear at the start and the end of each clip. This is a fade in and a fade out box. Okay, so I can just fade this out now because we're coming towards the end. So as the advert finishes, it will fade out completely. So we take a listen to this now. I've added a quick fade out.
Since 1834, the old brewery at Bathums in Stourbridge has been making some of the finest lagers and ales in the UK. We still operate as an independent brewery and have for over 150 years. Bathums, the finest ingredients to give you the finest experience.
Okay, so I'm happy with that. So what we can do now is add a bit of compression to our voiceover here. So if I highlight all of these, and like we did with the music, I'm just going to merge the clips together so they become one. So I can just hit merge clips, and now we've got our finished vocal track for our voiceover. So if I just double click this now and go back into waveform view, I can go back up to favorites, and I'm going to choose hard limit to minus 0.1 dB. So watch the wavelength as I hit this button. Okay, you can see it's sort of leveled the file out now. So we're going to be hitting on our meter ridge down here. We're going to be hitting just below 0. Obviously, if it goes above 0, then it'll be peaking and it'll sound awful. So I'm just going to play this back now.
Since 1834, the old brewery at Bathums in Stourbridge.
Okay, already sounding loads better. Okay, so if we just go back to our multi-track advert, you can see now that we've leveled it out a little bit more. So if we just play this back now.
Since 1834, the old brewery at Bathums in...
Yeah, I'm much happy with those levels now. So we just listen to the tail off and the end.
Ingredients to give you the finest experience.
Brilliant. Okay, I'm happy with that. So what we're going to do now is we're going to sort of merge those two tracks together in one, ready for saving and exporting. Okay, so the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to just literally highlight over them, click and drag over the two audio tracks, and then we're going to right click. And it might go off your screen here in a minute, but you're going to choose bounce to new track, and it's right at the bottom of this menu here. Bounce to new track, selected clips only. Okay, and you can see once I've clicked that button, it's taken those two tracks and bounced them into this one here. So if I just mute these tracks now and I only played the top one.
Since 1834, the old brewery at Bathums in Stourbridge is...
Okay, we've got our finished audio file with the fades in and the decrease in volume, and all of the edits that we've made have appeared in this final bounce now. So if I double click this one now, we're ready to save and export this. But before we do that, I'm just going to do the old, go to the old favorites and go to normalize, and I'm going to go to hard limit to minus 0.1 again. So that's brought it up to level now, and you can see our actual fade out that's happened right at the end here. So I'm just going to give this a quick listen to. It's always worth remembering you need to keep listening to your audio and keep playing it as you make any edits or make any adjustments, just to make sure that they are right. Okay, so we're going to do that now and just play it back.
Since 1834, the old brewery at Bathams in Stourbridge has been making some of the finest lagers and ales in the UK. We still operate as an independent brewery and have for over 150 years. Bathams, the finest ingredients to give you the finest experience.
Okay, so that's finished now, and we can go on and save and export this now to however we choose, basically. Okay, so you can see the file that's created has been dumped in our audio bin here. This is just the bounce_1 file. This is the first bounce we did. So now I'm going to go to File, and I'm going to go to Save As, because I've got that track selected. I've got that audio clip selected on the left. I'll go to File, Save As, and this dialog window will pop up. So now we can give it a name, so we can call it Advert Final. And we're going to choose where we save it to. I always save everything to the desktop, so it's not so messy and I haven't got audio files everywhere. If they're all on the desktop, I know where they all are and I can access them really easily. Okay, sample rate 48,000 Hertz at 16-bit. Those are sort of global settings. If they are any different, I would advise changing them to these settings. Okay, so this is crucial for audio, especially for audio for video. Because cameras record audio or guide tracks at 48,000 Hertz, and if the sample rates are off, then you can get sort of sync issues and things like that. So just remember, if you're recording audio for video or just general audio, I would recommend 48,000 Hertz at 16-bit. Okay. And obviously we've got audio formats here. The bottom two you'll probably recognize, MP3 and WAV. I'm going to go uncompressed WAV. Okay, so if I go for MP3, it's a more compressed audio quality. So the file sizes are smaller. It's good for transferring between people, just for sort of checking everything's okay, or if your editor's happy with this, if your director's happy with this. But your final outcome, you probably want it to be a WAV because it's going to be a better quality. We get an estimated file size at the bottom as well, 4.2 megabytes. Okay, so if I click OK now, it's saved that file now to my desktop. And I can do whatever I like with that now. I can email it off, I can insert it into a video track in Premiere. I can do whatever I like with it. So I hope this session's been a little useful. If there's anything else, just email me at dan.whitehouse@bcu.ac.uk. I'll be happy to answer any questions like that. But we're going to do some more videos as well over the next couple of days. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you all soon.